Hey friends, before we get into our lesson today, I just want to say at the start that this might not be the most kid-like video, and if you're a parent and you're watching this with your kids, I recognize that we're going to get into some themes of hurt that, they might hit a little close to home. And so what I want to say is that in the video description below, I'm going to put my email in there. And I realize that some of you might watch this and feel like, hey, we want to keep this conversation going, or I need to reach out to someone. And so feel free to drop an email, and I'll do my best to follow up in a real prompt manner and try and get back to you, because we're going to dive into the themes of what do we do when we have a relationship that's really busted and blown up. And what do we do when we've experienced real deep pain and hurt in that relationship? And so if you're a mom or dad and you hearing this and you first just want to preview this before watching with the kids, totally get it. That makes sense. And if you're watching this and you feel like, oh, I want to ask a question or just reach out, then hey, just scroll on down and you'll find my email there in the description. And I'd love to hear from you. Anyways, with that, let's get into the material for today. Hey everyone. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about broken things. I don't doubt you've broken a few things, right? I break things quite often. Dishes. Glasses. Sometimes I don't even intentionally, I never intentionally do it. It's just open the cupboard and I have a gift. What can I say? Right? Maybe sometimes it's bones. Man, I was pretty old before I really legitimately broke my first bone. But it happens. Maybe as a child, you've already broken a bone or two, right? You fall off a bed, I don't know. I'll tell you, I once broke my brother's toe. What did I do? I opened the door and I didn't know he was right on the other side, and boom, right? Stuff happens. Things get broken. Well, sadly, sometimes relationships get broken too. And I don't know if you've had that experience in your life yet, where you and a friend, you were great friends one day, and then something happens and you're not anymore. Even more sad is sometimes that happens in families, right? Where maybe it's you and a cousin or a grandparent or even your parents or an uncle or an aunt or somebody. Something happens and those relationships get blown up. They just get ruined. And it can be really, I think especially when it can be devastating, right? We can just be so lost in despair. We don't know what to do next. And we're going to look at some Bible stories today that kind of address that a little bit. The relationships with friends that are broken and what to do, and the relationships with family that are broken and what to do. And our goal in this is that, that we find some form of peace and comfort. And we're able to remember that in the Bible and Scripture, that God's really on the side of restoration and relationships being healed and people coming back together. Remember, what I really want us to remember as I move into our story is that the word peace means wholeness. And in order for us to have peace, sometimes that means getting put back together. So here's our story for today, and it's a story about two brothers. And oh man, they could not be more different. So there's the older brother, right? He's like, Mr. Dependable, right? He's like, I like to think of him like, he's like an OB kind of guy, right? He's just like this old dude who's like got everything. He's Mr. Competent and confident, and he's hardworking and dependable and like dad's number one guy. Anytime dad wants something done, it's like calls in the older brother, and he's like, here, you do it. Because he knows it's going to get done well, and it's going to get done right. Okay? And like, everyone loves him, and he's got the wife, and he's got the kids, and he's got the money, and he's got everything. And what's more is you just know that when dad dies, this guy is getting it all, right? I mean, it's partly a societal thing, right? Because usually in Bible times, they wouldn't always divide up all the stuff. They'd be like, okay, the oldest brother is going to get it. And so this guy he had it made. He was set, right? He was a big deal. Then there's the younger brother. Again, could be more opposite, right? And it's not that he's lazy. It's just, why should he bother? I mean, all he's going to do is make more money for his dad and older brother, and he's not getting any of the love. And why? And so he's not as motivated, and he actually has different interests, and he just does different stuff, and he doesn't have the same drive and aspiration, and well, a lot of it stems from the fact that he doesn't have a great relationship with dad either. They don't click, right? He's always in the shadow of the brother. He doesn't have a great relationship then with the brother either. He's not the center of anything. So he comes to his relation, right? He's surveying his life, and he goes, if I'm going to get anywhere, I kind of got to leave. But that's super risky, because in that day, you don't leave mom and dad. You don't leave home. But he decides if he's ever going to survive and thrive, he's got to do it. But he can't just walk away or he'll have nothing. So he's got to come up with a plan. He's got to be careful, but he kind of puts together a little bit of a scheme. And in the process of that, he blows up what even poor relationship he has. Dad's kind of like, oh, my son thinks I might as well be dead. And there's trickery and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And hurtful things are said, but he leaves the house under a cloud and under really bad circumstances. And so he's gone off to a faraway land. He's going to establish himself. He's going to make a bunch of money. He's going to find the wife. He's going to find the kids. And he's going to become a big deal. And for a while, life is good. It is set. Man, things are just clicking and it's all working out. But after a time, it stops. Like literally his life goes from just everything's on them. All of a sudden, it's in danger. Right? There's literal physical dangers in his life. And he realizes if he stays in the situation he's in, his life might be ended. It might not last much longer. What's he going to do? Does he go home? I mean, if he goes home, he's got to face dad, and he's got to face the brother, and he who knows? Like his troubles could follow him. They're not stuck in that spot, but maybe he'll find out that dad wants him dead, or his brother wants him dead, or what's he going to do? What's he going to do? But he can't stay. So he comes to his senses and just realizes, you know what? Maybe home wasn't as bad as I remember it. Maybe home, as he looks around his present situation, he goes, home was actually pretty good. There was some really good stuff happening there. I bet it, and he bets if he goes home, he might be able to recapture some of that. Right? He's starting to realize, things were pretty good, and he just didn't realize it when he was there to begin with. So he heads for home. But there's all this uncertainty about it. Will he be accepted? Will there be peace? Or will there be more war? Could he find peace when he gets there? Or will he live the rest of his life in conflict? Would his troubles follow him? Well, the good news is they don't. He's on the way home. He's not even there yet. And he's working out what is his plan going to be. He's got to have something figured out, right? He knows he's got to show up and he's got to offer something in order to try and make peace. But as he's on his way, he's met on the road. And the relationship restoration begins. He doesn't even have to get all the way there. And suddenly he's being hugged. And he's being welcomed and invited home. And he's being treated well. And he's not even fully home yet. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. He knows now, he realizes as soon as he gets it, there's going to be a party and there's going to be gifts and there's going to be all kinds of stuff. It's unprecedented. It's borderline scandalous. It's a broken relationship restored. Okay, by now, no doubt, you're like listening, but you're also in your head trying to go, what Bible story is this now? Where is this told? What is this? There's a couple things you might be thinking. Maybe you're thinking more than two, but some of you, I don't doubt, are kind of going, hey, this sounds familiar. Okay, this could be Jacob and Esau, right? Two brothers. The younger kind of blows things up at home, goes off to a faraway land and kind of makes a bunch of money and gets the wife and the kids and then tries to come home and the two brothers meet each other on the road and things turn around. And yeah, that's the accounts of Jacob and Esau. And Jacob, he becomes known as Israel. This is such a big story in the life of Israel, those two brothers that were at opposite odds found restoration. Or you might be going, hey, that sounds like that story that Jesus told. There's one of those parables, and you might be thinking that it sounds like one of Jesus' stories that he told, right? Because he tells a story about two brothers, I like to think of it as a story of two lost brothers, and some people call it that. You probably know it by the more common name, right? The prodigal son. And in Jesus' story, he talks about two unnamed brothers where the younger leaves home, goes off to a faraway land, and he just lives his own life and then realizes that he needs to go home because he's starving to death. So he goes home. And on the way home, he gets on the road welcomed and greeted. He comes to his senses, unsure if he would ever be accepted at home. And things turn around. Things start to look pretty favorable for him. Right? Two brothers separated, then united. Both stories. I think what I've come to realize is that in Jesus' story, I think he was telling Jacob and Esau for a first century Israelite context. He was kind of like reinterpreting it or retelling it as a way of helping them understand something that they should have known about their past and their history that was going on in their day. Two brothers separated, then united. Two brothers incredibly different. Two brothers at odds with each other. Two lost sons. Now, there's a major difference between Jesus' version and the original. And the difference is this. With Jacob and Esau, it's Esau that meets him on the road. It's the brother who comes back and welcomes him in. Who says, it's Esau who says, brother, I forgive you. Brother, we love you. Brother, welcome home. But in Jesus' story, it's the father. Now that's important. I want to pause on that, right? It's God, the Father, who comes and welcomes the Son. And it's scandalous for a father to do that, to be so vulnerable, right? Especially in Jesus' day. The idea that a father would be vulnerable, would run, all of this stuff, it's scandalous. And yet, God does it. So I do think Jesus wants to teach us something about God in that sense. But I also think he's trying to help Israel ask a really important question. The question is, which brother are you? Because most Israelites would be like, yeah, we're the younger brother. Come on, hello, Jacob is called Israel. That's us, right? We're the younger son. Like, we know, we are welcome. We're home. We're all of this. We're the son of the promise. But in Jesus' day, a lot of people were trying to act, or were starting to act, more like the older brother. Now, they should have been like the Esau that went out and welcomed people home. But instead, in Jesus' story, the older brother isn't on the road welcoming. He's standing outside the house. In Jesus' story, there's a party. The younger brother, he's got this whole apology laid out for dad on the street. He's gonna repent, and he's gonna say sorry, and he's gonna make all these promises, and all he's trying to do is get accepted as a farmhand. And while he's running through his rehearsed speech, it's almost like the dad's not listening. Because what's the dad doing in Jesus' story? He's talking to servants. He's saying things like, get the robe, get a ring, get a fattened lamb. We are gonna party. It is going down. It's like he's saying, yes, son, don't worry about it. We'll work it out. It's okay. It's okay. I love you. I'm glad you're home. You're so accepted here. It's okay. Get that fat calf. You know, the one that we've been like feeding butter to? Like she's going to be tasty. You know that one? I know you've been eyeing it up. It is one juicy looking cow, and she's going to have some good steak, and we are eating that tonight. Right? Because that's what he's doing. It's like he's chosen to accept the son before the son gets to say, I'm sorry. Before the son says, take me back, the dad already says, you're where you belong, you are home. The dad has outrageous, scandalous love for the son. And Jesus says, that's our dad. Jesus says, that's what the Father does. And so he wants Israel to choose. Which son? It's like Jesus saying, children of God, which son are you going to be? Are you that younger son that realizes you need to come home? Or are you going to be like the older one who stands outside the party judging the father? Because in Jesus' story, that older brother is indignant. He's mad at dad. He thinks dad's made a mistake. He's starting to tell dad what to do. He's like, Dad, how could you invite him in? Then he's jealous. Dad, you've never thrown me this party. Dad, why aren't you doing this for me? He is outside the party. Jesus' story, one of the most tragic in all of Scripture, ends with the older son standing outside the house, watching people on the inside, and he's judging who's in there. He's prideful. He will not go in because he's too stubborn, because he thinks he's in the right, because he thinks all of that is wrong, so he won't go in. And Jesus says, children of God, which brother are you? He doesn't literally say those words, but that's the implication of the story. And he wants his listeners to wrestle with that question. Because it's really easy to go, yeah, it would have been so easy for them to go, yeah, we're the younger brother, of course, that's our namesake. But many of them were choosing the path of the older brother. And they were trying to assert themselves, thinking they are right, to decide who gets to go in, to decide who's actually worthy of being welcomed back by the Father. And I think part of why this story lasts and why the gospel writers were so clear to include it is because it's not just a story for the people listening to Jesus in that day. It's a story for us today too, for us as Christians, because we have to answer the same question. We, as children of God, we as people who know that we've been welcomed to the party, as people who have chosen to join the family of God, we all at some point in our lives, I think, come to the realization that we're the younger brother and we need to come in. We need to join the family. We need to enter that relationship. But sometimes, over time, we can lose sight of which brother we're meant to be. Just as Israel was meant to be the younger brother who always knows they're welcome home, who always knows that, well, you know what? Who really knows this? Relationship is more important than anything. Because I think what really was happening in the life of the older brother is he lost sight of the joy and the blessing that the relationship with the Father is, right? Because it's easy to do so. It's easy to miss the fact that, man, when we just get to sit at the table, that's incredible. And it's really easy to lose the joy of just being in the presence of God and think that, okay, now this is something to maintain. Or to think that, okay, I've got to work for this. Or to think that now we've got position or status or whatever you want to call it. It's so easy to lose sight of the fact that just being part of the family is incredible. It is a blessing. It is a joyful privilege. And it is not something to sort of hold over people, but it's just something to say, God, thank you. Thank you for being my dad. And so what was happening was the older brother forgot that, forgot the joy, forgot the blessing. And he was trying to, in the best of intentions, do what was right for the father, instead of just being there. Now, I say that, and full disclosure, if you know me, you know I'm an older brother. And older brothers, we can be like that. We can sometimes lose sight of what's really important. We can sometimes self-appoint ourselves to positions that we're not meant to hold. And so the story lasted because as Christians, we got to answer the same question. Which brother are we going to be? Are we the younger brother who realizes that being in the presence of the Father is incredible, and it is awesome, and it is a privilege, and it is a blessing, and it is such a joy? Or are we going to be like the older brother who thinks it's now our responsibility to decide who gets in? We're going to be like the older brother who thinks, oh boy, it's our responsibility to protect the family, to decide who's in and who's out, and whether or not the person coming is worthy of the Father's acceptance. We have a word for this in our world, and a term that you may have heard, and it's the term gatekeeping. And you can probably, the term probably says enough for you to understand what it's about, but there's a situation that comes up in life where it kind of paints this picture. And it's that of a nightclub bouncer. Now, if you're younger, I trust you don't have firsthand experience with this, but maybe you do. No judgment here. Full disclosure, don't. I knew a guy in college. He was a former bouncer at a club, but mostly it's from TV and movies, right, where we see this, where I've seen this. But in every scenario, it's very similar. There's a person outside. They're checking the IDs. They're determining whether or not the person before them is worthy to go in. Inside's where the party is. It's the place where everything's happening. But first you got to get past the person at the door. And they're going to determine if you're worthy. And they look each person over and they go, yeah, you can go. No, you get out of here. Oh, you can come in. No, you get going. And they're the one who decides. That's kind of what the older brother, I think, was trying to do here in Jesus' story. He's trying to decide who gets into the party. But no one asked him to. That's nowhere in Jesus' story does the Father say, hey, I want you to stand outside and watch. So we have to decide which one are we going to be? Now, I'll tell you what. I don't want to be the guy on the outside. I don't. I want to be inside. Because inside's where the party's at. Inside's, well, it's where Jesus is. And it's fun. And it's a party. It's a celebration. But most of all, it's with Jesus. And the thing about those on the outside, they never get in. I don't mean the people lined up trying to get in. I mean the guy at the door, the bouncer, the gatekeeper. He's got his back to the action, and he's so busy judging everyone on the street, he never gets to come in and experience the thrill of life with Jesus. He thinks he does. He thinks he's part of the action, but he's never really in the party. He's on the outside, sometimes looking in, sometimes with his back to the action. And I think this is a really important story for us to continue to go back to, because I don't want you to miss the party because you're out on the street checking ID. My prayer for you is that you'd be inside, you'd realize that as the younger brother or sister, if that is a better picture for you, you are welcome, you are loved. It is the Father's delight to have you at his table. And so we tell this story because we all have to decide which of the children are we going to be. We also tell this story because you might already know you're that younger sibling, you're the younger brother or sister, and you might have this tug. You might be thinking, man, you might feel a longing to get back to God, but you might not be sure if you're going to be accepted. Well, there's a couple things I want to say to you if you feel like you're in that position. The first is this. Those bouncers, those gatekeepers, the people checking ID, they're self-appointed. And like I said before, yeah, they have good intentions. They think they're doing the work of God. But more often than not, they're misguided. This is the story of the Apostle Paul, who, back when he was known as Saul, he would have been that guy on the outside. And what happened to him? Well, God literally blinded him to get him to stop. To get his attention, God had to physically limit his abilities in order to say, stop hurting me. The word he used was persecuting. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And so I want you to know that if you want to come back to God and you're worried about an older brother type or an older sister type who might be stopping you, my prayer is that you would realize they're often not acting in God's interest. And God will deal with them. But the other thing I want you to realize is that our God is one who meets us on the street. He doesn't wait for us to get in the door. He goes out and meets us. My prayer is that you won't even have to meet the older brother type because God's already met you. And he's already putting his arm around you and bringing you in. And so, if you're worried about that, please know that God's going to meet you where you're at. And he's got you. And I can't plead with you enough. Trust him. That's what I want to leave you with this week. That you would find our Father loving and accepting and generous and scandalous and kind because he is. Jesus, and I want to leave us with this. The words of Jesus from John 14:27. Because likely, if you've had a bad experience with other Christians, sometimes even family, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, whomever, and in the name of Jesus, they've done things that hurt you, and you're not sure if you can trust God because of your experience with other Jesus followers. These are the words of Jesus. He says this, "Peace I leave you." Remember, it's wholeness. That's what he wants for you. He wants to make you whole. "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled. May you find him to be the God of comfort, of peace, of hope, of joy, because he loves you very much." And we'll see you again real soon.